It's time to say goodbye to Nigeria for now, and hello, Johannesburg, South Africa. That's coming up on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone and being a part of what we're doing. Just so you know that all the travel I'm doing is not as glamorous as you think, let me just tell you what happened in getting me from Abuja, Nigeria, all the way to Johannesburg, South Africa, yesterday, day before. What happened was I had a flight from Abuja to Lagos that was on a little no-name podunk airline. I'm getting a haircut at the airport while I wait at my gate for my flight to board. Boarding's in about 10 minutes, so I figured I had time to get it trimmed. Got like that. Efficient use of my time. I don't even remember the name of the airline, but it's, an hour and a half flight, not a big deal, kind of a commuter thing. And it was supposed to leave me at the airport that I was flying out of that afternoon to go to Johannesburg, South Africa, with about 2.5 hours to spare. Well, that should be plenty of time to get, off one plane and go across the airport and get on another. However, number one, that plane was delayed about an hour, so that cut the time quite a bit. When I got to Lagos, I found out that the domestic side of the airport is across the runway from the international side of the airport, and there's no way to get across. So what you have to do is leave the airport, get in a taxi, drive all the way around the airport, and come back in to the international side. Fortunately, CBN Nigeria had one of their guys there waiting for me as soon as I got out of the airport. So he threw me in his car. We took off. Of course, the traffic is abysmal. The roads are terrible. And took amazingly long to get all the way around there. By the time we got to the international side of the airport, there was only about 45 minutes left before the flight left. Well, maybe an hour, something like that. And I thought, well, that's good. That's enough. I can make it. I mean, how long is it going to take me? I got no bags to check. It's not going to take me long to run through the airport, to get to my gate. Well, I run up. First of all, there was so much traffic getting into the departures area that I said, leave me off at arrivals downstairs and I'll just run up the stairs. Well, that turned out to be easier said than done because you have to go through security to get into the airport, and they don't let you get into the airport from the arrivals area. Once you go out, you can't come back in. Well, I just sort of ran in and ran past the guards, and they chased me down, and I yelled and screamed, waved our arms a lot, and they finally let me put my bag through the scanner backwards somehow. And I was just frantic at that point. Put my bags back on, ran up the stairs. I go to the ticket desk, and there's all the people there to check in for my other flight. And it's another no-name airline, African airline called A-Sky or something. And the lady's sitting there at the desk surfing Facebook, and I walk up, and I'm like, I need to get on flight 60. And she goes, sorry, we already closed it. And I'm like, look, I got plenty of time. I'm here. I don't have any bags to check. Just give me a boarding pass. I'll be out of your way. She's like, nope, sorry. She wouldn't even. Finally, I was like, can you just please look at me when I'm talking to you? And she's like, you have to go upstairs and get booked on a different flight. So I was like, So I take off running and go up there. I get up there. I get the same treatment from another one of their employees. And finally, I was trying very hard to be nice and Christian love and, gentle and merciful and not scream profanities or anything. Finally, God sent this angel in the form of some guy with a road guard vest on. He walked in and he said, what's going on? And I said, I just need a boarding pass. He said, it's too late. I said, I know she said that, but she won't even look at me to give me another ticket for tomorrow or anything. He said, oh, geez. And he reaches right underneath where she was, pulls out a blank boarding pass, pulls out a pen, writes my name and the flight number on it, says, here you go, and follow me. And then takes me right through security and ushers me through immigration, helps me get through everything, takes me right out to the airplane. Guess who's standing there closing up the flight? The original lady that wouldn't give me my boarding pass at the first gate. And her eyes were bugging out. She was surprised to see me. And I had been talking to this guy that was helping me, and I was like, are you a Christian? And he said, yeah, I am. And I said, I could tell. Where do you go to church? And he told me. And I said, tell you what, I'm leaving the country. Here's the rest of my cash that I, not going to be able to use anymore from Nigeria. So take this Nigerian cash and donate it to somebody who needs it in your church. And he was like, oh, that's really nice. Thank you very much. So I ran down the gangway there, and I came around the corner, and the door was closed on the plane. And so literally they had to knock on the plane to get them to reopen the plane up to let me on the plane. That's the closest I've ever made a plane by the way. And they were none too happy about it. So from there, it was a couple-hour flight down to Gabon, to Libreville, the capital of Gabon, which is an interesting place. We stayed there for a couple hours just to lay over, and then took off and flew 5 more hours to Johannesburg here. Got here about 3 o'clock in the morning, took an Uber down. I thought the whole place was just absolutely, I thought the rapture had taken place. There was nobody out. It was amazing. But unfortunately, it's not like that. Okay, I made it to Johannesburg. Nobody lives here. It's empty. It's a ghost town.
So who's driving you?
Maybe wait, except for Linda, who's driving me. There's nobody here because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And Linda assures me that the traffic is exactly like this at 9 a.m. Yeah, no, not really. Well, unfortunately, it's not like that all the time, because we found out during the day the traffic can get pretty bad here in Johannesburg, one of the largest cities in South Africa. And there's several reasons why I'm here. I'm reporting on the incredible violence of this country that has risen since about the mid-90s. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse, to the point where a young man in one of the slums in Johannesburg or Cape Town is more likely to get shot and killed than somebody who lives in Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan. It's unbelievably dangerous, but the kind of danger is not the danger that comes from war or disaster. The kind of danger that we see in Johannesburg and Cape Town is simply from gang violence or petty crime, robberies and home invasions and stuff like that. So the other reason that I'm here is because of the spate of murders of white farmers here in South Africa that's happening. And it's been in the news a little bit in the United States, and you may have heard something about it. But when I went to report on it, or maybe a year ago, mentioned it in one of my NRA commentaries, I got crucified in social media, Twitter and everywhere. Media Matters jumped all over me because I was apparently talking about some myth that actually never did not happen. As a matter of fact, the president and the government of South Africa right now claims that white farmers are not being murdered in droves. It's not a problem. It's been blown all out of proportion. And so I just really wanted to see what the truth is of the matter, whether it's true or not. And so in my first 24 hours here, I've had a chance to go and interview somebody who's an advocate for these farmers. His name is Ernst Roots, and he wrote a book about these white farmer murders, and he's got compiled all of the data of what's happening here, and it's apparently much worse than people think. In speaking with Ernst, I was really struck by just the situation that white South Africans find themselves in this country. Now, coming from the United States, where we're so careful about race, we especially if you're white, you have to be very careful about what you say and how you say it so that you don't come across as racist. And very often you can easily be misinterpreted, or at least intentionally misinterpreted, sometimes even, to be considered that whatever you're saying happens to be racist when you don't even mean it to be. So it's a touchy subject to talk about whites being persecuted in this country, here in South Africa. Because, even talking like that, I've gotten some pushback from people in the States talking about, whites were responsible for apartheid. They were the ones doing the oppressing. They're not the ones being oppressed. And that may have been the case in the past. There were obviously some horrific injustices that happened under apartheid. But I've been trying to get a more nuanced understanding of why apartheid existed. And again, I would never make excuses for apartheid, ever. Never make excuses for the forced segregation of people. I think people ought to be able to go where they want to go and do what they want to do. I'm more of a libertarian that way. However, I wanted to get a better understanding of the reasoning that people had in their brain, of why they justified apartheid, and whether or not there was any merit to the concerns that they had that gave rise to their choice to implement apartheid. That doesn't mean that there's any merit to apartheid itself. That was undoubtedly a horrible idea for solving whatever problems they thought it would solve. But I wanted to know, what are those underlying things they wanted to solve? And we're going to talk a lot more about that on some upcoming episodes of the Hot Zone. I think that it's a very interesting and nuanced subject. It's one that's very delicate, that I'm going to have to be very careful, and I'm going to have to beg you to take off your easily offended hat. You take off your very delicate sensibilities when it comes to talking about terms of race, and let's get down to the brass tacks. Let's talk about what the problems were and how they tried to deal with those problems, and how those things are still having repercussions today. So I've had a chance to talk to a whole bunch of people in the last 24 hours, and very, very fascinating stuff. I can't even begin to tell you in just this short period of time we have left on the podcast today about just how my mind is being expanded with just a better understanding of this issue. And we're going to delve into it a lot more over the coming days. So today I went out to a get-together, a bunch of South African military veterans, kind of a veterans of foreign wars kind of thing. These veterans specifically all participated in the Angola War, or what they call here in South Africa, the border wars, starting in the 1960s all the way to the 1980s. It went on for about 25 years. And it was really the worst war, or the worst battles that African continent has seen since World War II. It was very, very bad, and tens of thousands of people died. And we really don't know a whole lot about it in the United States. I would venture to say that 9 out of 10 Americans would not even be able to tell you where Angola is, much less know that there was a very important war there that was sort of a flashpoint in the Cold War. It was the Cold War gone hot with a bunch of proxies down here in Southern Africa. And we're going to talk more about that, because it's a fascinating subject that I've learned a lot about today. And I really enjoyed my time with these gentlemen. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, we're going to be reporting on the gang violence and that sort of thing here in Johannesburg. In the next couple days, I'm going to make a quick trip down to Cape Town. It's wintertime here. So guess what the first thing is that I did when I got to South Africa? I was telling people I used to have a world map on my wall when I was a kid, and I would lay there on the floor of my room or on my bed and stare at that wall when I came home from school and just daydream about going to all those countries, going to all those places, and I just memorized the continents and the countries. And I remember looking at South Africa and saying, man, that is so far away. It's so far down there. And the one thing I knew about South Africa is that when you flush the toilet, the water went the other direction, went it down the bowl. So that was the first thing I did when I got to South Africa, is I ran to the bathroom and flushed the toilet to see if the water indeed went the wrong way. Unfortunately, the toilet was one of those things that goes whoosh, and it doesn't really spin at all. It just, disappears very, very quickly. So I was going to video it for you, but it didn't work. So sorry. Well, we got a lot more coming up, and I really appreciate all the feedback I'm getting from you guys. Colleen, I got your message, and it really meant a lot to me. You're very sweet, and I appreciate the appreciation that you have for the hard work that we're putting into this podcast, and it really gives me a lot of encouragement to want to keep it going. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/hotzone. You can go to PayPal and PayPal money to hotzoneholton@gmail.com or whatever. I love to hear from you. Get a hold of me on Facebook. Get a hold of me on Twitter or whatever. And if you are listening to the podcast, you're going to want to go and watch it on OpsLens TV because you're missing a lot if you're not seeing the podcast, because I'm putting a lot of work into editing this thing and putting in a lot of great video. So I hope you'll go and watch that. OpsLensTV.com, and you'll see right there the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton on the front page. So thanks for watching. I'm Chuck Holton, and you're watching the Hot Zone.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.